She threw it, Ethan. Boiling water, straight at my kid, right there in the afternoon sun. Sophie's scream ripped through me before my brain even caught up, her arm blazing red. And there on the porch, clipboard in hand like she was presiding over some trial, stood Cynthia Grover, the queen bee of Willow Bend Estates, smug as ever, lips curled like she just taught us all a lesson. You ever lock eyes with someone so wrapped up in their own authority, they act like pain is just collateral for order? If you haven't, well, buckle up, because Cynthia ran this place like the bylaws were weapons and fear was just another line in the HOA's rulebook. You people never listen, she sneered, not even glancing at my daughter's burns. That rose bush is an unauthorized modification. No personal landscaping within 10 feet of the walkway. And I'll never forget it. The way her voice didn't waver for a second, like a 10-year-old skin bubbling was just an inconvenience on her quest for uniformity. I felt my hands shake. Anger, panic, adrenaline. Hell, maybe all of it at once. You just assaulted a child, Cynthia. She just raised an eyebrow, eyes flat as slate. File your complaint. The board will review it. But here's what she never bothered to learn. See, I'm Ethan Rowe, and I built this neighborhood's drainage system myself. Every slope, every concrete slab. I know exactly where public property ends and mine begins, and that rose bush was planted 18 inches inside my line. Legally untouchable. But none of that mattered to Cynthia. What mattered was power. What mattered was keeping people just scared enough not to fight back. That bush wasn't just any plant. It was the last thing Sophie planted with her grandma before cancer took her last winter. Every morning, Sophie'd water it, talking to the petals like maybe, just maybe, her grandma could still hear her. It was our rebellion, a splash of stubborn color, in a world obsessed with beige fences and silent neighbors. But for Cynthia, it was an eyesore. She'd find us for a wind chime once, said it violated sound harmony. She'd cited me for a cracked driveway slab I was scheduled to fix. And every time, I followed the rules, filed the paperwork, kept my head down. But this was a line you can't uncross. She did it all out in the open. 2. Community camera poles everywhere. No apology, no shock. Just, you'll receive a notice. Her eyes flicked over to my wife Lauren, who stood frozen in the doorway, phone shaking in her hand. Thing is, Lauren's not just my wife. She's a property law attorney. And her silence wasn't fear, it was calculation. You're on camera, Cynthia. This was an unscheduled inspection. Not on the calendar, I said, my voice shaking. Which means the HOA is liable for any incident, not just you. That was the first time I saw her hesitate, just for a second. You wouldn't dare drag the HOA into this. I held her gaze. You already did. Lauren started documenting everything. Photos, timestamps, every angle of Sophie's burns, and even the dirt where she landed. She knew their game. Deny, delay, deflect. But we weren't just homeowners anymore. We were plaintiffs. Pretty soon, ambulance lights painted our street red and blue. Neighbors peeked out behind their blinds. Some pretended not to see. Others quietly filmed on their phones. That's when I realized Willow Bend wasn't built on order. It was built on fear. People complied because they thought they had to. But I didn't. Lauren took Sophie to the ER while I stood out there, facing Cynthia, who clung to her clipboard like a life jacket. You should have stayed quiet, Ethan, she hissed. I stared at the battered rose bush, half wilted but refusing to fall. Quiet is how you get away with this, I told her. For a moment, she flinched. Then she turned and left. Inside, I could barely breathe, anger burning hotter than any spilled tea. I knew what was coming, not just a fine, but a court date. Cynthia always hid behind her paperwork, but this time the numbers were going to crush her. A week later, Lauren found it. The first crack in Cynthia's armor. A payment trail linking HOA funds to Cynthia's personal legal bills. The day after the incident, everything looked the same on the surface. But something in the air had changed. Lauren laid a folder in front of me. Cynthia filed a counter-complaint. Says you were aggressive, that she tripped, spilled the water accidentally. Typical, right? But this time, there were security cameras. There were neighbors on their porches. The difference was, nobody came forward. Fear wasn't just a side effect here, it was the foundation. She's doubling down, I told Lauren, staring at a new notice about daily fines. She thinks we'll fold. Lauren just shrugged. We won't. Next morning, I walked straight into the old clubhouse. The board sat at their big oak table, Cynthia flanked by the president and secretary. "Mr. Rowe," Cynthia greeted, all syrup and venom. "We received your dispute, but your conduct," I cut her off. "Self-defense. After you assaulted a child." The president cleared his throat, Cynthia's smile stretching tight. "If you persist, you'll violate Section 4, defamation of officials." They thought paperwork was armor. I set down a stamped county survey. "That rose bush is 18 inches inside my property. You find me illegally." The room got quiet. "I designed your drainage system," I added. Heavy silence. "You can appeal through proper channels," Cynthia snapped, grabbing at control. "Until then, fines remain." I just left the notice on the table. "Then we'll handle it through court channels." Back home, Lauren got busy, drafting letters, submitting medical documentation, challenging our insurance denial. "Cynthia's listed as the alternate HOA contact for claims," she said. "That's illegal." "How illegal?" I asked. "Illegal enough the insurance company could pull coverage." That night, the porch lights across the street started blinking off early. Graham Lowe, the treasurer, walked past with his dog, couldn't meet my eyes. Guilt's easy to spot if you've worn it yourself. Lauren joined me outside. Emergency board session tomorrow. Topic: community conduct and false claims. I just nodded. Let them talk. The more they put in writing, the better. She sat beside me, quiet. "You're not angry anymore." "No," I said. "Anger burns out. Pressure doesn't." The next night, the clubhouse was packed. Every folding chair facing Cynthia at the head table, pearl earrings, posture perfect, hands folded like a queen. "This meeting," she announced, "addresses false claims and inflammatory behavior by certain residents." She didn't have to name me. Lauren and I stood at the back, her phone recording. Graham looked like he wanted to vanish. Cynthia pressed on. "The HOA takes misconduct allegations seriously. However, Mr. Rowe's accusations have been found inconsistent." I stepped forward. "Written by people you pay?" A ripple went through the room. Lauren squeezed my arm, a signal not to go too far. For the first time, people actually listened instead of shrinking. Cynthia's mask slipped. The Rowe family filed for insurance review, abuse of procedure. Lauren cut through. That review was legal. Your vice president listed herself as alternate insured, using community funds for personal legal protection. Graham's pen clattered to the floor. All expenses were authorized, he mumbled, but Lauren slid a spreadsheet across the table. "This $4,800 legal retainer?" Same day Cynthia hired her private counsel. Coincidence? Graham stared at the numbers, then up at us, realization dawning. "I wasn't told about this transaction," he whispered. The room woke up. Cynthia snapped. "That's enough." "Graham." But he pushed the paper forward. "You told me this was insurance to protect the association." "You're mistaken," Cynthia barked. "No, he isn't," Lawrence said. The meeting dissolved into chaos. By morning, the neighborhood group chat exploded, Cynthia claiming it was all a misunderstanding. But it was just damage control. Meanwhile, Sophie's world shrank to hospital visits and whispered updates. Every bruise on her arm was another fine paid in fear. Lauren found Cynthia had signed off on an unpermitted new drainage line, no county approval. That was the lever we needed. That night, rain hammered the park pavilion while Cynthia faced us with her accountant. Lauren laid out the records. "You authorized construction without approval. Signed as vice president. Routine maintenance doesn't require filing," Cynthia tried. "The new drainage runs under a public easement," I said, showing my stamped blueprints. "That's not maintenance. That's structural modification." Murmurs from the crowd. The accountant asked for original invoices. Cynthia's silence was answer enough. When the city flagged Willow Bend for compliance review, it triggered an insurance audit. The fuse was lit. Later, Graham knocked at our door, hands shoved in his jacket. "She told me to delete transaction logs," he said. "Did you?" Lauren asked. "No, but she'll blame me." "Then stop covering for her, Graham. She's setting you up." He handed us proof. Payments from the reserve fund to Cynthia's personal account, matching her lawyer's retainer. "Do what you need to," he said. "Just don't let her know it was me." That night, Lauren sent everything to the State Insurance Bureau. When Angela Perez, their investigator, confirmed misappropriation and violations, We knew Cynthia had nowhere left to hide, unless Graham lost his nerve. We found him at the lakeside diner, hunched over coffee, looking torn. But Lauren pressed, and Graham agreed to testify. That broke the dam. The HOA's accounts froze, fines vanished, maintenance stopped. Cynthia's car sat outside the clubhouse, blinds drawn, but her empire was crumbling. Police arrived. Audit in progress. Angela confirmed. $72,000 misappropriated, personal payments through a shell company. Years of it. Cynthia finally appeared, pale, her lawyer clutching her arm. You destroyed everything this community stood for, she snapped. Lauren looked at her. No, Cynthia. You did. When you made control your god. That's how it ended. Not with a dramatic showdown, but with exposure, courage, and a single rose bush that refused to die. Cynthia lost her house to restitution. Graham finally looked his neighbors in the eye, no longer haunted. Willow Bend rewrote its bylaws, real. Voices at the table for the first time in years. And as I stood on my porch, sunlight catching that stubborn rose bush, blooming red against the mud, I realized power's only safe in the hands of the watchful, the compassionate, the brave. So if you've ever stared down someone who thinks fear is just part of the rules, share your story below. Tell me where you're watching from. And if you believe justice is worth the fight, because here in Willow Bend, we learn the hard way. Silence is how tyranny survives.